Hey everyone, welcome back to Porter's Product Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Porter, and today we're diving into a topic that's often overlooked in product marketing, but arguably one of the most powerful levers for long-term success. That's relationship building and networking. Whether it's aligning internally across teams or building strong network of peers and advocates, great product marketers know that influence isn't just about what you say, it's about who trusts you when you say it. Our guest today is a true expert in the art and of relationship-driven product marketing. I'm thrilled to welcome Tamara Grominsky, the founder of PMM Camp, which I'm part of and have been very, very excited to be a participant in. She's held a lot of impactful roles at Kajabi and Unbounce. She brings a unique blend of empathy, strategy, and connection to everything she does. Tamara holds a master's degree from Simon Fraser University and a bachelor's degree from York University. Tamara, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I think this might be the first campers podcast that I've been on.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. And as you know, this is one of my very favorite topics. And I think a topic that does not get covered enough. We focus so often on like very specific PMM skills, but this is kind of the biggest unlock to your career success. So I'm excited to chat about it today.
Absolutely. I think it's always something I've thought about, regardless of the role, is just that networking and relationship building. And so you have kind of embodied that with your own product marketing community. So absolutely grateful to be part of that. So let's dive into some questions about that. So the first question really is about relationship building. How do you go about building and nurturing strategic relationships, both internally and externally, as a product marketer, and why is that so critical to the role?
Yeah. I think taking a level of intentionality is really important here because if you don't, it can be really easy to like burn yourself out with relationship building. Like, because the reality is we have jobs to do. And the reality is we also have lives to live outside of those jobs. And so we have a finite amount of time. So I always recommend starting by being like, what is your goal in relationship building? And now that sounds transactional, but it actually isn't.
Okay.
And internally and externally, you might have different goals, but being really clear, like if I'm starting at a new company and I want to focus on building relationships, I want to focus on unlocking specific stakeholders who trust me, right? And so I'm going to take a different approach to that than say if I've worked at a company for 5 years and I have a different goal. Maybe it's actually just to better understand different parts of the organization that I haven't been exposed to yet. And so like anything we might work on, like what does success look like here? And reverse engineering from there.
Yeah.
Because that's going to help you really understand, like, am I doing enough to hit my goal? Am I talking to the right people? Do I need to shift? Is my strategy actually working? All of those good things.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that makes sense. I hear what you're saying about having a goal could sound transactional, but you do need to have some type of aim, and you can't talk to everybody on the planet. So you need to have some kind of targeting strategy to know that, okay, you're going to benefit from the relationship, but the other person will also too. Hopefully there's some kind of symmetry there. So I think that's really key.
Yeah, 100%. And I think from the beginning, I should say, like, you have a goal for what you want out of building these relationships, but you shouldn't have a goal for the individual relationships themselves, if that makes sense. Like, you should go in. So I'll just give the example again. And like, I did this when I was at Kajabi. So I started Kajabi. I was the VP of product marketing there. And so my goal for relationship building was, how do I make sure I'm meeting the right people that are going to help me and my team be successful in the next 90 days? So that's like kind of my overall goal. So that allows me to filter out people who I would love to meet, but I just know in the next 90 days, they're actually not critical to that. Right. But what I'm not doing is saying, wow, Josh is the head of product. How do I go get as much as possible out of Josh? Like, when I actually approach the relationships themselves, I'm just approaching as a human and I'm wanting to get to know each other. And so I even recommend, like, I wrote this whole blog post about this, about when you're doing your initial relationship building calls, when you get to a new company, don't even ask them about the role. What you want to understand on those calls is like, who are they as a human? So I love to ask questions about like, what brought you to Kajabi, or what keeps you at Kajabi? And just really understanding them, what they're energized by, what they're trying to accomplish. And then in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking, how can I start to add value to them? So maybe it's like an article that I read that I can send over to them, or maybe it's something I've worked on in the past that like could help them now. So I actually start by thinking about like, how can I help this person trust me before I start extracting value from the relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like that. That definitely humanizes it a bit more the way when you look at it. Like,
Exactly.
yes, I had this ultimate goal of networking and relationship building, but when it comes to the specific human, yes, it's not about getting something out of them. It's about being able to just kind of just to connect as a human
Mm-hmm.
and and have some common interest, and you could get some insight from them, but you also need to add value to them as well. And
Yep.
so hopefully there's that symmetry as well.
Exactly.
But those are great. That's a great example to kind of think about that and to really think about the high level strategy of networking, but also what is it on this one on one human connection level that we really need to think about in our approach.
Mm-hmm.
All right, great. So the next question is about cross functional collaboration. It's the lifeblood of product marketing. I had one leader who would say that product marketing is the great in between. And
Yep.
so you're really trying to build those relationships all across the organization. So what do you feel are some of the best practices in earning trust and influence across teams like product and sales and customer success?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Collaboration is everything. I will say, I think one area that people get wrong about collaboration is that people think that collaboration and stakeholder like relationships means that you're liked by everyone. And
Hmm.
I actually don't think that's the objective. I think the objective is to be trusted by everyone. And often to be trusted by everyone, you cannot be liked by everyone. And so, where I see a lot of people get this wrong is they'll go in, again, whether you're new or an existing org, and they're just trying to become friends with everyone. And actually, that's not the goal, especially as you move up and up in your career. Like, you're not making friends at work, you're making colleagues and business partners, right?
Right.
And so, of course, you want to be friendly and you want to understand them on a human level. But I have always found that when my cross functional stakeholders actually know that when I stand up for my own opinion, or I'm not afraid to just like actually say when I do have a different perspective, I'm not always just like championing their ideas, whatever it might be, then they know that they can trust me to actually give them good feedback. When it is a good idea, I'm going to like support them. And
Yeah.
when they need to think more critically, they can trust me as a sounding board for that. And so I think that's a critical like frame that you need to do. It's like you're not trying to build friends, you're trying to build trusted partners. So that's kind of step number one. Now, how do you do that?
Hmm.
Again, you need to start by having a understanding of who you want those trusted partners to be.
Right.
And I think of it in two different ways. The first way is like, who do I need around me to complement my skill set and my like maybe gaps in my thinking? Like, I know I think a certain way and I
Yeah.
know I have biases in a certain way. So I actually want to build relationships with stakeholders who are the opposite of that, who are going to push me to be more critical in that area. The second thing I'll think about is like, who will show up in meetings that I'm not a part of and they can champion my ideas for me. And so I
Ah,
always say
yeah.
you need 5 stakeholders at your company who are going to champion your work when you're not in the room. Five just is like the secret number. If you only have one or two, then it seems like you just have like a best friend. And people are
Sure.
like, there's, George again, always sticking up for Tamara.
Yeah.
But
Right.
when you have five, and then there's always kind of someone in a room being like, I heard Tamara mention the other day this, or
Yeah.
I love what Tamara and the team have been doing with this. So again, there's a bit of strategy into this piece.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's super helpful. So two things going back to the what's more important is than being liked is being trusted. I
Yes,
mean, that goes back to our shared love of the show Survivor. And
exactly.
I had a friend one time. I had watched the season with where one of the seasons where Parvati won,
Yep.
and I was like, you know what? I do not like her. Like, I'm not super, I don't like the way she engages with other people. And I was talking to a friend about this, like, post analysis. And the person had said, yes, she may not be likable, but people respect her gameplay. They
Totally.
trust her gameplay. And so I think that's a very similar situation
Yeah,
here. There's so many life parallels with Survivor and life
totally.
work, as you have well shown in other presentations. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's absolutely right. It's more in a business setting. It's more important to be trusted than liked.
Yeah. And it's like, you shouldn't be an asshole. Like, that's not what I'm saying
Right.
either. Like, you still want to be a good person and you want to show up with integrity. But I think, and I've seen this before, I've even been guilty of this before. It's like, oh, I maybe hold back my real feedback just a little bit because I want Josh to be my friend,
Yeah.
or I want to be invited to that lunch next week. And so maybe I don't share the real feedback that someone needs to hear. And it's like, at the end of the day, that's actually hurting the other person in their work and then the company's work more than just that friendship, And so I have found that the more real I can be with my stakeholders, actually, the deeper friendships do evolve out of that, anyways. But it's like, you go in for the trust and the accountability first, and then friendship is like a byproduct of that, rather than being like, I'm going to go make friends with everyone. And then that's me being a good stakeholder, but you're doing that at the expense of the work.
Totally, totally. And I think I remember another quote about about kind of success. This person said, "I don't know what the secret to success is, but I know the fastest way to fail is to try to please everybody."
Exactly.
So I think that this is really good general strategy about I need to think about trust with these relationships as the priority. And to your point, don't be, mean, but gain that trust first.
Yeah.
And then I also love that specific number, and I know you said it's like, you can kind of fluctuate, but you need to have more than 2 or 3
Yeah.
specific trusting relationships who can speak about your work when you're not in the room.
Yeah.
Speaking of another, like I'm throwing out all these quotes and parallels, but I heard that some of the most important decisions about your career are not when you're not in the room. And
Yeah.
so of course that comes with promotions, but that comes in smaller moments that can build up to that for situations like you just mentioned. Tamara really did well in this presentation. I liked what she thought. I'm going to advocate for her even though she's not here.
100%. 100%. And just to go off what you said, it's so true. So one of the things I talk a lot about is when people are wanting to be promoted, both from senior PMM to director and from director to VP, so much time and energy is focused on like convincing your manager that you're ready, you have the skills, the jobs be given to you. At that level, definitely VP, but oftentimes a director, depending on the size of the company, that decision is not made by the direct manager. Yes, the direct manager is, suggesting this person or putting them up for promotion, but you need several other leaders across the organization to agree that that person is ready for that role. And even if you as the manager give it a green light and the other folks give it, a red light, that person's not going to get the job. And so that's why you need to be doing this relationship building, because other people are going to decide your future for you, whether maybe it's not a promotion, but maybe it's like what project you get put on or whatever it might be.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That was a good additional commentary on that. There's steps to that promotion in between, and you need those advocates. You need those advocates that will speak to you when you're not speak about you when you're not in the room well before that time comes.
100%.
So, well, that was a great insight. All right, next question. Let's try to zoom out a little bit.
Sure.
External networking, whether it's peers, mentors, thought leaders, that can be a huge asset in this field.
Mm-hmm.
How has networking helped you grow as a product marketer, and how do you approach it with intention?
Yeah, I love this, and I could talk all day about this topic.
Yeah.
So a couple thoughts. First, I think most people wait too long to build a network. And I think we think of it as an activity like, oh, I'm networking, versus what we actually want to do, which is build a network. So again, there's like an end goal to it. So what's a network? It's a group of trusted people that you can go to, that you also trust can come to you as well, right? It's like a two-way relationship. And so you can't form a two-way relationship in the moment of need, right? Because it's going to feel transactional. The person's going to be like, oh, you just want something from me. But, if I have a relationship with you, and, it's been going on for months or years, whatever it might be, over time, we engage in a variety of different ways. Then if you ever do need something, I'm going to be the first person to raise my hand and be like, of course, let me help you. Let me connect you to who I can. So again, I think there's a bit of like change of frame of how we think about it. It's not an activity you should be doing when you need it. It's something that you need to be doing well in advance. And then I would also say that this isn't just something that you can do like once a year. So many people think it's like, I'm going to go to a conference once a year, or I'm going to, I'm going to show up on LinkedIn and hope for the best. I have this idea of like micro connections. And I
Uh-huh.
think real relationships are built through micro connections. And
Yes.
so it takes time, as I mentioned, and it takes effort. It isn't just me and you meeting at a conference. It's, oh wow, I know you like Survivor. I saw this funny meme. I send it to you one
Mhm.
day. Oh, you read an article about networking. I love that. You send it back to me. Um, I'm in the city and I want to grab a coffee. Let's grab a
Yes.
coffee. It's like all of these micro connections that we have. It might even be me just tagging you on LinkedIn one day
Yes.
because I thought of you, and I don't even leave a comment. I just tag you and that,
Mhm.
that's so
Right.
sweet. She was thinking. Um, and so it's much more strategic than people think, but it's also much more authentic than people think, right?
Yes.
Um, does that make sense?
Absolutely. And you've talked about this before, which I think is super helpful. Yeah, those micro moments are super helpful. It's kind of going back to what you were saying at the beginning, and I had another leader kind of summarize it this: build a relationship before you need it.
Yes.
And because in that moment of need, it's like, well, are you just talking to me because you need me, or do we have a foundation here before this actual moment? And so I think that's key. And then to your point about um the ability to have those micro moments, whether it's, hey, Tamara, I saw this article about networking, I text it to you, or that kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier about adding value to the
Yeah.
relationship. It's like, it's not only adding value, but it's also maintaining some of
Yes.
that friendship. But those are those micro moments where
Yeah.
it's like, it doesn't have to be this big event. I don't always have to see you once a year. It can just be something that made me think about you, and I bring it up to you in a
Yeah.
text or some LinkedIn post.
Totally. And I would say it's also about being like a whole person. Like, again, I see so many people like separate things. They're like, oh, this person is my work friend, or this
Uh-huh.
person I talked to this topic about. But it's like, I think the more you can show people with, like, obviously appropriately, like who you are, what things you do have in common, like it does actually strengthen and deepen the relationship. I would say another thing that people get wrong is they think that they're growing their network for themselves. So it's like, oh, wow, the more product marketers I know, the more people I can ask for help in the future. Everything in my life changed when I completely switched this. And I said, the more people that I have in my network, the more I can help others. And, because we have camper calls, and I'll,
Yes.
I'll always ask, like, what can I do to help you today? Who can I introduce you to? And I go to my network to introduce other people in my network. I rarely go to my network to help me
Yeah.
myself, right? I do get help, but it
Yeah.
kind of, again, is organic and is a byproduct of that. And so it's like, kind of coming from a helper place is a much more rewarding way to build a network, and much more interesting. It's like, I love connecting to cool people who wouldn't have met otherwise, right? What a joy to be able to do that.
Absolutely, and I can attest to that. You've done that to me with me for several times with several different
Mm.
other campers or just people in the industry, and you're great at that. And that's the great thing about the PMM camp community. It's
Mhm.
kind of organic way to kind of meet other PMMs. I think you've got the right approach. I like to tell people, especially when they come to me and they're looking for some, either connection or some kind of help for something. I just say my network is your network.
Exactly.
And so I think you obviously have that same philosophy. And so having that ability to kind of think, how do I turn this around and think, how is this going to help other people? I think is really key. And that goes back to, and I'm referring to so many third party sources here, but Adam Grant has his book called Give and Take,
Yes.
and he talks about givers and takers. And then there's a third one that's kind of matchers. But
Yeah.
as you can imagine, the takers in business are, yeah, it may seem like they do have some gains at the beginning, but it's not always true that they always get the success at the end. The givers are the ones who usually can find, if you look at it, if they're along the way giving, they're the ones who find success. So I think that goes along with this very well.
Also, and again, this is just something I've learned over time. Like, I would not have said this 10 years ago. So this is truly a reflection of my growth. What is success if you're there alone?
Right.
Like, I used to be like, my success, how do I get better? How do I win? And that was actually quite a lonely place to be. And so now it's like, I want to win. I want to accomplish my goals, but I want to do it with really cool, interesting, kind people alongside me. And to me, that's like much more rewarding and interesting and fun than being there alone. And so I think givers get that joy, you know?
Absolutely. And I was about to say the one exception is Survivor, but then at the same time, you still have the jury. The jury, you're supposed to convince these
Yeah.
people that you're trusted enough to be able to get that. So yes, there is one sole survivor, but you don't get there alone.
No, you don't.
So
No.
yeah, I think that's a great way to kind of think about it. All right. So now that we've kind of gone through building great relationships, now comes the hard part, and that's actually maintaining them. As
Yes.
your network grows, how do you really keep those connections authentic and valuable over time, especially when you've got a full plate? I know you've talked a little about this with micro moments, but any other thoughts on this maintenance topic?
Yeah. This is the hardest part, especially if you've been doing all of the other things well. So, a couple things that I do that help. I mean, they may not be everything, but I'll start by encouraging everyone to create a personal CRM. And so for me, that's just something I have in Notion. But basically, any conversation I have, whether it's with a camper, a friend, a colleague, any conversation, I will just take a few notes, and after my call, I'll just like add those into the CRM. So I have one for you, Josh. There's an entry.
There we go.
So basically, my CRM, I have people, and I can categorize them. Oh, they're a camper, or they're a friend, or they're a vendor, or whatever it might be. And then every time I have a meeting, I create a conversation, and I link conversations to people, so I can see, oh, you and I have 10 conversations. Now, this is really good because it just gets you in the habit of like going into your CRM and being like, oh, yeah, I haven't talked to that person in a while. But also, it allows you to kind of like clear out your brain. So, like, I can store all
Yeah.
the facts I need about someone. So, if I'm going to chat with you again, I mean, I know you, so I'm not going to do this for you, but maybe someone who I was like, oh, it was a couple months ago. I kind of forget, like, what city do they live in? Or like,
Yeah.
I go in, I'm like, oh, their daughter was just about to graduate. Maybe I can
Mhm.
bring that up or whatever. And so that's really helpful, just of like having one place where I store things. I think the second one is relieving yourself of the pressure to feel like you always have to be networking all the time. I try to
Okay.
get it to be a bit more authentic. So I actually like had this sticky note on my desk for a really long time that said, who can I delight today?
Mm,
And I just
okay.
like tried every day to delight someone. And it could be just anyone in my network. And I would just get inspired. Maybe I saw someone on LinkedIn and I was like, I want to delight them today. Or maybe it was someone who I'd worked with in the past. But it was just like a prompt to get me thinking about that. Um,
Love that.
and then I will say, sometimes there are like very specific goals that you are trying to accomplish with your networking.
Yeah.
So let's say someone's like, you know what, I really want to move into a director of product marketing role. I feel like I'll probably be ready for that in 12 to 18 months. So I want to spend some time with directors of product marketing just to better understand like the way they think, the
Yeah.
work, whatever. Then maybe I might actually put in a few things in the calendar, like okay, every month I want to meet with like one director of product marketing. So I might be a bit more intentional with how I schedule that, depending on what I'm trying to accomplish at the time.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
kind of how I think about the maintenance.
Yeah. I love that. I love that personal CRM. I feel honored that I'm in
You
one of
are.
these. So and I just became aware that this is an actual category of tools, a personal CRM. I
Yeah.
think there's a few, like one I'm trying out is Clay.
Yeah.
Um, there's a few others, but I was blown away that even existed. And for this exact reason, I also, of course, am really interested in maintaining my network, and it's great just to have some kind of tool in place to say, oh, I haven't talked, or the last time I talked to this person, this thing happened.
Yeah.
Or, you can, I'm sure, automate certain things like,
Mhm.
this is my mentor network. I need to reach out to them once a quarter,
Yeah.
however you want to do it. But yes, the idea, whether it's like a dedicated tool or a Notion doc or Google Sheet, whatever have you, that personal CRM, I think is a great idea to make you feel like, all right, I don't have to keep this all up here in my head.
Yeah.
It's documented. That way I can remember this person in context.
Totally. And then the other thing I'll add is if you are asking for something from someone else, whether it's advice or a connection or anything that you might be asking for, follow up with that person and let them know how that went. because I think, and I say this from someone who gets asked for a lot of things,
Sure.
the,
Absolutely.
the, I love to help, but the most memorable moments for me are when someone follows up and said, thank you so much for introducing me to that person. We had a great convo. We'll see where it goes. Even just the fact that I know, oh, it went well, that's awesome. Or, hey, thanks for that referral. I actually got an interview. Or, hey, you mentioned that book on our last call. I read it, and here was like one takeaway that I got from it.
Yeah.
Again, it kind of just, it helps you continue the conversation and deepen that relationship, but it also makes the other person feel like, oh, wow, my time was respected. This is helping, you know? So often we just like
Yeah.
send things out into the abyss and we're like, I don't know what happened to that.
You know what? I love that. That's great because I mean that is of course something we think about a lot with whether you're doing like a job interview, like send a thank you note to
Yeah.
the hiring manager, or thank everyone that was part of the product launch, or those types of things. But that's something I think is overlooked. But I love that because that's a key thing that you wouldn't have gotten to that product launch or probably gotten to that hiring manager if it wasn't for somebody who had connected you along the way. So
Yeah.
you better send that thank you note as well.
Yeah.
Uh,
And people feel good helping others. Like people want to help, right? And so like help them get that dopamine hit, you know, let them know
yeah,
that they actually did help.
absolutely. I love that. That's such great advice. That's just another micro moment. That's
Yes.
another way to maintain that relationship. And it just shows that you're grateful.
Yeah,
So
that's it. Exactly. It's
that,
good
there's
manners, if nothing else.
absolutely, if nothing else, it's good manners. It's just good etiquette.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, Tamara, this has been a really refreshing conversation. I think your insights about relationship building and influence are a really good reminder that in product marketing, connection is as strategic as any positioning doc.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, as we think about what we've talked about today, I really want to kind of shift gears now to our rapid fire round and
Sure.
have a little fun. You ready for this?
I love some fun. Organized
Awesome.
fun. I'm here for it.
All right. First rapid fire question. What is your favorite marketing tool besides a personal CRM?
Yeah, exactly. Gosh, honestly, I'm just gonna say Notion. I don't know if
Uh-huh.
Notion counts as a marketing tool, but it's
Yes.
literally my like life tool. So I'm just gonna say
Yes.
Notion.
I think that's great. It's very versatile. People
Exactly.
people are obsessed with its interface.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Notion disciples out there,
Yeah.
to say. Second question. What's the most underrated skill in product marketing?
Yeah. I think the ability to ask good questions.
Mm.
Asking a good question is actually very difficult.
Hmm.
And, without it not being biased, without it not
Yeah.
leading someone, and actually being able to surface the right insights or the right next question. And so I would
Right.
say probably your ability to ask questions.
I love that. I think that's great. And you're right. It's not a simple thing. You got to really think about your questions, but you also have to be sometimes brave enough to do it. And
100%.
it can. I like this adage: who doesn't ask a question. I'm sorry. He who asks a question is a fool for 5 minutes, but he who doesn't ask a question remains a fool forever.
Exactly. Exactly. So often people are afraid of like looking dumb in a meeting, but it's like everyone else is thinking the same thing. You're
Yeah.
just like the person who said it. Or what if you didn't say it and then a decision was made and there could have been like some, other consideration that needed to be taken into account.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. So it's not about looking like a fool. Plus, probably people will forget to even ask the question. It's about
totally.
getting the understanding.
Yeah, they're gonna, and what people are gonna say, they're gonna be like, wow, that Josh, he's so smart. He's always asking great questions.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. So it does. It definitely helps you stand out. That's for sure.
Mhm.
All right, next question is: what's the biggest mistake to avoid in product marketing?
Oh no. I did not prep for these ahead of time, as you can tell. So
Totally fine.
best biggest
Biggest
mistake to
mistake. Biggest
avoid.
mistake.
I think trying to be good at all parts of product marketing. And this might be a hot
Ooh,
take. I actually don't believe that product marketers are generalists.
yeah.
I do not think the world's best product marketers are generalists. So I think that to be a good product marketer, you need to have a foundational core skill set. That is
Mm,
true.
yes.
That to me is different than being a generalist. A generalist
Yeah.
is someone who's like equally good in all things. I think the best product marketers, the ones that I enjoy working with the most, who I've seen be the most successful and drive the most success for companies, are ones who have that foundational skill set and have a specialization or a passion, a superpower for something about the job, whether it's, oh, I'm more inbound or outbound, I'm more SMB or enterprise, whatever it might be. And so I think the people who are like, I'm a generalist, that's the biggest mistake you can make in product marketing long term.
I love that. I love that. And I think that's kind of I think a lot of us have seen that kind of T-shaped product marketer where, yes, you have all the foundational skills about creating messaging and positioning. You can do launches, you can do sales enablement, but what is that one area where you can go really deep in?
Yeah.
And it could be some of those specific product marketing skills, or it could be a domain. Is it
100%.
AI? Is it CRMs? Is it segment?
Exactly.
So those are the things that definitely differentiate you. So I love it. All right, next question. What's one thing you wished you knew when you started?
Yeah, my career or product marketing in particular?
Product marketing.
Both. Okay. I think one thing I wish I knew when I started was that there are many ways to move deeper in my career. I think we often think about career progression as moving up, like moving up a ladder.
Yeah.
I talk about this a lot. So it's like, I'm a PMM, I'm a senior PMM, a group, a director, a VP, maybe a CMO. That's one path. But I have seen, very successful product marketers make just as much money and have just as much respect going to like a principal PMM role, or a really interesting like individual contributor role. And I think I didn't allow myself to like explore some of those pathways earlier. And so one of the things I talk a lot to folks about is like, okay, moving up is actually taking on a completely different job. It's not a higher level of the same job. There are literally two job pathways. One is not better than the other. And it actually requires quite a lot of introspection to understand like which one is best for you. So I think I learned that the hard way, but it would have been like cool to know earlier in my career.
Absolutely. I like that. I mean, one of the first newsletters that I ever read from you was about how you became chief strategy officer. And it's like, oh, I didn't even think of that as an option.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
I love the kind of the broader view of, I don't have to go, there's this one path for me. I need to come, individual contributor, then director, then VP, then CMO for product marketing. There are other options for me. So I love that. That's a great tip. All right, final and most important question. Favorite podcast?
But besides yours, of course.
Naturally.
I'm going to say, because we were talking about it before we recorded today, The Marketing Millennials with my friend Daniel Murray. Daniel's one of my besties in real life, so it's so fun to listen to him on the pod. Yes. And we're actually doing a collaboration right now where we're doing a handful of episodes. I think we're going to do 15 episodes. We're in the middle of recording like episode 9 now. Amazing. Called GTM Plays, and we do it in 10 minutes or less. So I would say check that out. It's a fun little mini series, and Daniel's pod in general is, I think, the best marketing pod out there.
That's great. That's awesome. Yeah, definitely for the audience here, check that out. That's a great opportunity to learn about and hear from Tamara even more, understand some of her collaboration, and there you go, networking.
Exactly.
You're building that relationship there with and expanding your network. So, well, awesome. Tamara, really great answers. I think there's a really good mix of practical and personal tips. Thanks so much for joining us today. I think the insights that our listeners are going to have are really going to help them build and maintain their relationships within product marketing. I know I benefited from just by knowing you and working within PMM Camp. Hopefully this can reach a broader audience, but really appreciate the insights that you shared today.
No problem. Thanks for having me on. And I love talking about this. And I actually just wrote about this in my newsletter last week as well, which is showing gratitude to the people in your network. And so I think like a great final prompt is, if there is someone who you have been, networking with or has made an impact, actually just like send them a note and let them know that, because it really does make someone feel special. Imagine if you received a note like that. So maybe that we'd encourage everyone to do that as part of their networking homework today.
I love that. That's a good homework assignment. Because gratitude, while we all know it's important, we don't do it very often. And so when people do, it does stand out.
Exactly.
So I love that. All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Porter's Product Marketing Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and maybe even share it with someone in your network. Because as we all just learned, great marketing starts with great relationships. See you next time.